This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. It is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings, all things Chicago Blackhawks, and news around the NHL. On tonight's show, we've got a couple topics to talk about. The fact that Jonathan Toews is expected to be back next season for the Chicago Blackhawks. He's been sitting out this year, and, there hasn't really been much of an update on what's going on with him this season. So the fact that it sort of came out that he should be coming back next season, what that means for the Hawks, and just in general, what that means for their club. Also, the fact that longtime Chicago Blackhawk Andrew Shaw has officially announced retirement. He's been with the organization through some of their cups, and just kind of different to see a guy who really did the whole "I'm going to work my way into the NHL" retire, and sort of set that career off to the side. What does that look like for him, maybe in the future, as well as just sort of reminiscing about his career in Chicago? The fact that Riley Stillman signs a 3-year deal with them, I believe it's a $1.35 million a year contract. So it's not a big contract, but again, it's a 3-year thing. Chicago's got options now, especially with some of their expiring contracts this season. And then also the fact that Chicago's out of a playoff spot as it sits right now. And realistically, I think everybody could agree, it doesn't look like they're making the playoffs this year. So what should they be doing with these last 10 or so games that they've got to play? Because you got to do something, and you got to really decide what you're doing. And then over on the wing side of the podcast, we got a couple topics to talk about as well. The fact that Joe Veleno has officially cleared quarantine. He's back in the U.S., and the Wings have said they're expecting him to play sometime this week. So he's going to get NHL reps. And when he gets those reps, what do we expect? What do we think the Wings should be doing with him? What overall are we looking to see from him as a player? Also, the fact that Moritz Seider wins Elite Prospects Award for the best junior in the Swedish Elite League. And a fun fact, the first non-Swede to do, though, just sort of, again, talking about him for a second, we praise him every week, but again, that's a great award to see somebody who's in the Wings farm system get. The fact that Jacob Vrana has himself a 4-goal game, one of the few Wings in recent years to do that. And then also just a little bit of talk about Jeff Blashill. There was a press conference with Steve Yzerman this past week, and some questions have sort of came up about him, what his job might be next season, whether he's going to get a coaching gig again with Detroit or not. After all of that, though, we're going to be talking about our flashback and flash forward segments of the show, where we talk about the week that was and the week that's going to be for both the Chicago Blackhawks and the Detroit Red Wings, as well as what we expect. And then finally, we're going to just close it out with a topic that I would kind of wanted to talk about, the past couple of weeks. I'm just managing expectations for players, because the Blackhawks and the Red Wings both really walked into the season with expectations. What are you doing to manage expectations? And now that the season's sort of wrapping, we kind of have a good idea about what happened with those expectations this season. So that's a topic that I want to close on that really has to do with both of the clubs. But with that being said, I'm your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, David Barnhouse and Tim Stompanato. Everybody, welcome to the show. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing well.
Feeling good.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, as we covered
here last week.
As we covered last week, David was out with an upper body injury, unknown timetable. What's it looking at now? 8 to 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm. It's something like that.
With the steroids, maybe quicker.
There we go. That's what we're talking about.
Gotta get juiced. So, Jordan, I want to ask, with your topic that you said at the end, does this include, the conversation we had about people getting all pissy-moany about Zadina?
Oh, the average at best comment that I got to have a fun talk with somebody on Facebook with.
Because people that say those things don't really understand hockey, and that's fine.
And that's okay. They're fans too. What would be the sport without the meatball, the hothead fans? Exactly. But that's what we're here for, take the hot takes and figure out what has a grain of salt to it and what's just homers being homers. But yeah, excited to be here. Excited to talk about some hockey. Excited that the Super League is falling apart in European football.
Yeah.
All is right in the world.
All is right. And, hamburgers. Eat them when you want, people.
I had what was it?
Yep.
Me and a couple of friends, we had a cookout today. We had, I think it was like 7 steaks or something like that.
That's a lot of steaks.
It is a lot of steaks, and they're all New York strips. They were delicious.
Oh, now you're talking. What are you grilling on these days? Propane, charcoal,
I gotta do propane.
There you go.
Propane accessories. Oh, ladybird.
There we go. Hank Hill be proud.
Hank Hill would be proud.
God, I miss King of the Hill.
Is that show even still running?
No.
There's rumors that Mike Judge wants to bring it back, but they'd have to do a new Luann or whatever her name was. The
or just write a
Brittany
reason
Murphy
that
died.
Luann's out. Yeah, I mean,
was that
life happens.
Did I just remember that? Was it Luann?
Yeah, it was Brittany.
Wow.
Brittany Murphy was Luann.
I can't remember. I remembered that name of that character. Okay,
Speaking of people being back, though, Jonathan Toews.
That's what I'm talking. What a segue, and what a hero, Johnny Toews, the captain. I was hoping that Nick would be on by the time we talked about this, but I can't contain my excitement.
Trying to get home now. He said his game just ended.
He's doing his softball, but he'll be here to talk about hockey in a little bit. But Jonathan Toews, this has been such a scary time. Again, Jonathan Toews, I love the fact that he's been able to retain his privacy throughout this whole thing. He's been able to deal with this. No leaks, either from him or the Blackhawks organization. That is remarkable in this day and age. And I know that some fans, and I get it, it comes from a place of wanting to know what's wrong. It's scary that he's been out and we haven't had information, but it's also not our business. And so for Darren Dreger to come out and say, hey, to all of you that are wondering, it is confirmed that his health he's getting better. If his health continues to move in the right direction, in the direction that it's going now, he should be able to return. He's on a trajectory to return next season. And that is so exciting. I know that the Hawks have exceeded expectations this year and they're finding their centers of the future and whatnot. But Jonathan Toews is still the heart and soul of this Blackhawks team, of this era of the Blackhawks.
He's the captain, man.
Yeah.
He's the heart.
Yeah, especially with, Seabrook retiring, losing Shaw, who's a huge voice in the room. Jonathan Toews creates that trifecta of what is left of Toews, Kane, and Duncan Keith, of just this pillar of leadership. And I'm so excited for him to be back and take these young guys that had a year to thrive and grow and find their place under their wing and say, all right, let's go.
I just want him to come in. Oh, the captain's back. Listen here, shitheads. Things are about to get real. I thought he was nice.
Yeah, I'm serious.
One thing that's, I think, really cool about this situation is because he wasn't here this season, you kind of had a locker room of guys who there was no definitive guy who was really leading the club. And so I think you had a lot of guys who did step up this season, who took those minutes, who took those assignments, and it kind of forced them to grow as both, individuals on the ice and off the ice in a locker room. And I think that's kind of unique for you guys. It's not often that teams just lose a captain for an entire season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Wings had it where Zetterberg kind of dipped out right before the season, and we didn't have a C. We haven't had a C for 2 years until Larkin took it.
Yeah, it was a 2-year gap.
So that was crazy.
And I will say we had so many young guys that were able to, step in, find their voice in the locker room, find their, place on the ice. But we also saw Keith and Kane grow this year. With this absence in the locker room, Kane really sort of became, it's still weird to look at Kane as an elder statesman because he's a child. Look at him on the ice and the way that he interacts with his, teammates. He's like a kid, but go ahead.
he was like the Shanahan to our Yzerman. He
Yeah.
was that basically if Yzerman wasn't the captain, that's who it was.
And that's Kane, has obviously never worn an A until Seabrook started to be out last year. But he has become so much more of a leader in this past year. He's even taken on some like defensive responsibilities. I see him back checking in games. And part of it is like he has to. And the other part of it is I heard him talking at one point. He's like, yeah, all these kids are like back checking and they're relentless on the puck. And I'm like, I should be doing that.
Stop making me look bad.
But I mean, yeah, when you've got Hagel and Hinostroza and even DeBrincat who are like hustling out there, like stealing pucks, getting things away. If you're Kane, you're like, well, I should be doing that too. And even Duncan Keith, who like has always just been this stalwart, defender. He's now become, this like wise old veteran that's like taking kids under his wing. And he's like, I will guide you through this time. Let me be your ice hockey Sherpa and I will guide you to glory. It's just so exciting to see the old guard and these young guys like Kurashev and Hagel and Suter who have taken on new responsibilities and we're blending it together. That's a recipe for a winning culture.
Yep.
I mean, like you look at a lot of the successful clubs here at the NHL that have really maintained success. That's how they do it. You look at Boston, you look at Tampa, you look at Washington. You've got, a couple guys who were fantastic players. And as they get older, they start, grooming these guys beneath them, be like, look, I'm not going to be here forever. Eventually, you're going to have to take up the mantle. You need to get ready for it. And they kind of have. I mean, Boston's had some great breakout players. Yeah. Tampa's done it. Washington, they haven't done it as well, but I think they've had some really big surprises. I mean, I don't think anybody saw Tom Wilson, for example, becoming, just the player that he is.
No, that was a huge, I mean, yes, but that was all his skill is also a surprise.
Mm-hmm. And like, that's the thing is the Wings are another great example of this. If you want long-term success, you need to have stable leadership and you need to also have guys who get forced to step up in moments. And the Hawks have kind of been having that. I mean, Kirby Dach has stepped up huge since he's been back. Like you said, DeBrincat has stepped up. Patrick Kane, the guy who was often labeled as I don't want to say one-dimensional player, but almost a purely offensive player, has started to play competent defense. Now, is he winning a Selke? No, but he's playing defense.
Exactly. He's not supposed to win a Selke. That's not his job. But I mean, he was a player that used to basically scoff at defense. And now, like, he's retrieving pucks. He's hustling. He's back checking at 31 or 32. I don't remember but he's right around there. He is another one of those players. He's like Crosby in the way that every year he adds a new level or develops a new area to his game. And that's what I've said it before. I think Patrick Kane's going to play into his 40s. I have no doubt about that.
He could. I mean, we're seeing athletes play older and older in these days. Like, imagine if Bobby Orr had the medical technology that we have today.
Yeah,
things like that.
A lot of players, for that matter. I mean, I think it would be really interesting, and it would be really interesting to see a lot of these guys from the 80s and the 70s who, if they had today's technology, how long would they stick around for? I mean, you got the guys like Jaromir Jagr who played for forever, but
who's like still playing, just not in the NHL.
Datsuk's still playing too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Datsuk just wanted to move home. It feels like.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And I'm glad he didn't leave us for another NHL team because it would have shattered my heart to see him in another sweater.
Yeah, no, this was the best move for him. And I respect that.
We can touch on a couple Wings topics because I want to try to save some of the Hawks topics before
we got some big things to talk about, and I'd rather my compatriot is with us.
On the Wings side of the podcast, a couple of things to talk about. One, Joe Veleno has officially cleared quarantine protocol, and per the news that broke from, I believe it was Helene St. James, it's expected that he's going to be playing with the Red Wings this week. And
it was Hilling St. James. You're right.
Okay. So personally speaking, I think that Detroit needs to play him third line center, and that's where you're sticking him. Either that or you play him third line wing. I don't want him getting playing top line minutes. I don't think he's ready for that competition yet, especially when they're going to be playing teams like Tampa or Carolina, which we'll get into later in the flash forward. But I want to see them ease him in on the third line. And I think that's a realistic spot for him right now.
Very realistic. I mean, he's been playing in Sweden. He's played with the Griffins previously. I don't recall him ever playing for the Wings.
He hasn't had any games with the Wings. He only played with the Griffins.
Okay, that's true. So yeah, start him off on the third line, let him work up some confidence. And if he's showing, wow tendencies, put him on the second, see how he does. It would be my dream to see him with like a Zadina and Verana on his wings.
Mm-hmm.
That would be ridiculous.
No, I'm assuming that they're going to give him, the 8 or 9 games, that whatever it is, the max games is before he can take a year off the ELC.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of just overall play, what are you looking for in particular out of Joe Veleno, David?
The player that we saw that we drafted, the guy that knows where to put the puck. He gets assists. I mean, what was it when he drafted him? He had like 60 goals in his season. Yes, it wasn't like the NHL or the SHL, but 60 goals is 60 goals. You're banging them in. So if we can see him kind of getting himself in the spots he needs to be in and maybe getting a couple goals, I'd be happy with that.
I want to see the Wings use him as like a puck facilitator on the power play. That's really what I'd like to see them have him do. I want to really see him basically be the setup guy. I don't think his shot's good enough yet to be the trigger man. And honestly, I think Zadina needs to be kept in that spot, just for confidence reasons. He's been working hard and he hasn't been getting the goals for whatever reason. But also, Joe Veleno is going to be a centerman that the Wings are probably expecting to be a playmaker, not as good as Larkin, but in that same sort of vein of he's the setup man. He takes the draws and he gets the occasional goal. Mm-hmm. I think the Wings need to put him in that sort of a situation. And I don't want to see him playing penalty kill. I know it would be good for experience, but I don't want him playing penalty kill. I want 5-on-5 and I want third line center.
If I could see him getting, 6 to 8 points in an 8-game stint, whether it's like a goal and 7 assists, I see the assists outweighing the goals. Just seeing him getting his name on the score sheet is what I would hope for.
Mm-hmm. And like, even if they're not primary assists, even just secondary assists, I think are still fine, because it means that he can actually read the Wings playbook and he knows, and it can adapt to their systems. Now, granted, the Wings power play has been pretty atrocious, but it's been that way all season. But again, I would like to see it where he may not make it better, but he does not make it worse.
Yeah, he's a fresh player coming in. Maybe his freshness and his tendencies could help improve the power play. We don't know.
Now, with Larkin out for the rest of the year, how do you slot
the 1C?
I was gonna say, who is it that goes to Fabry?
I think Fabry, then Filppula.
But Fabry's still out, isn't he?
Oh, Fabry's still out?
Yeah, he's still out.
And it's Phillips.
I guess so. It's Filppula as the first, and maybe Rasmussen.
Rasmussen hasn't looked too bad though this season.
That's what I'm thinking. If we want Veleno as the third line center, Rasmussen might not be a bad call on that second line.
For sure.
I don't know. I think really, like, realistically, I think Joe Veleno, third line center for these 8 or 9 games, whatever the number is. If you get goals, great. That's awesome. But more just assists and being able to play with an NHL club and not look out of place. I think that's the big takeaway they need to have.
For sure.
The other piece of Wings news, and we sing this guy's praises every week, and I always try to say pump the brakes, because
manage those expectations
until you texted us, franchise defender.
In the words of Michael Scott, I'm ready to be heard again. But so Moritz Seider, the defenseman that they drafted 2 years ago, the defenseman out of the German league, This last week, he won Elite Prospects Award for the best junior player in the Swedish Elite League, and he's the first non-Swede to do this. This is huge for the Red Wings. They have not had a big name blue line prospect. And I'm not talking about like a first round blue liner. I'm talking about a blue liner who legitimately could be a franchise defenseman or even a legitimate certified top pair defenseman in a very long time.
How dare you besmirch Xavier Ouillet? How dare you?
The heck of a name. That's a franchise name.
It was a sweet name, but he just sucked. No, Moritz Seider, like, I was hesitantly excited when we drafted him because he wasn't on my draft board when I was looking at top 10 draft picks. And
anyone's.
I think GMs knew more than we did because there was rumor that the team after us was going to pick him.
Interesting.
But seeing his play, especially, the videos people constantly post on Twitter of just Moritz Seider just straight up bullying people, like grown-ass men, and he's just bullying them. But he also is smart in terms of puck movement and distribution. Like, he could be a total package defender if he develops the way it looks like he's going to develop, where he can score, he can assist, he can take the puck away from you, or he can just make you wish you weren't on the ice. And it is so exciting. I don't think we're going to see him this season on the Wings. I'd love to, but I don't think we will because I think he's going to keep playing in Sweden. And I think we'll see him next year. But that award, that is just, the feather in the cap to all of us that have been excited for him because we're just like, it's paying off. Look at this. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. He's doing great. And we want to see that transition to the big time for us.
Mm-hmm. And like, the thing is, everyone that I've talked to has said, you still haven't seen him at the NHL level. I know we still have not seen Moritz Seider at the NHL level, but the Swedish league is not ridiculously far off with skill level. Now, yes, are there teenagers playing at the Swedish league? Yeah, but the fact is there are also still fully grown men.
Yeah.
And the Swedish league is arguably the second or third best league in the world, depending on who you talk to. It's
depending on your stance on the KHL, it fluctuates between second and third best.
So the fact that he's getting an award for being the best junior in that league, that's huge, especially as a defenseman. Like, again, I say pump the brakes, but man, this kid is looking.
Yeah, you say pump the brakes, but then you do hit the gas.
You forget what your left foot and your right foot is, and you just freaking go right foot, boom.
Do as I say, not as I do.
I don't know. This is huge. This is really exciting. Like,
it is. It is not every day that a team ends up with a potential franchise defenseman. Teams spend entire eras of their team looking for that number one defenseman.
I'm gonna take a real hot take.
I'm so excited.
Hot take. Moritz Seider greater than Rasmus Dahlin.
Oh,
I said it.
All right. I'm okay
Maybe
with
because
it.
Buffalo's gonna kill that kid's career.
Well, and that's the thing. The Rasmus Dahlin on a semi-competent team. Yeah, here's my weekly beat down on Buffalo. Rasmus Dahlin on a team that could have developed him. You give him to Yzerman, who has shown that he is willing, and there's a couple teams that show they are willing to let a guy grow. You don't need to rush him in. He's not going to be your savior if you burn him out. But the problem with Dahlin, it's the same problem with Erik Karlsson, same problem with Erik Gustafsson. The offense, the same concern we had with Boquist on the Hawks. Does the offense and the risk outweigh the reward? He's still a defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
Can he show that he's responsible without the puck? He's not causing turnovers, all that jazz. Time will tell with Dahlin. With Seider, we're already seeing not only he plays the body, but he's also very competent with the puck. And to me, I value as a franchise defenseman a two-way defenseman that plays the body, but also helps with offense more than a pure offensive defenseman. To me, that's what wins you. If you can build around that, that is a championship franchise structure.
You just tickled my brain earlier. I'm just now trying to imagine, and Jordan, I want you to imagine this too, a blue line pairing of Moritz Seider and Yzerman mentored Dahlin.
Oh,
That would be dangerous.
God.
that would legitimately be based purely off of Dahlin's original potential. Oh my God. I wouldn't want to play you. I don't want to play you now with Seider coming up, but like that would be a phenomenon. And that's what you're sort of hoping with Hronek, right?
Mm-hmm. Hronek is supposed to be our version of a top pair offensive defenseman, except he's like the light version, if you will.
Which
Diet Coke.
If he can be a little more defensive, I mean, you look at like a Torrey Krug, who doesn't get brought up as much in the offensive defenseman stuff, but I think that he's an offensive defenseman that is not a defensive liability. That's who I sort of look at. And if Hronek can be sort of a Torrey Krug type, fantastic, especially if he's paired with Seider.
And like, that's the thing, like Moritz Seider can be that definitive defensive defenseman or two-way defenseman that the Wings need in the power play situation and the penalty kill situation on like those big moments where you need somebody to kill minutes. Hronek can be that guy on the power play who you look to just start slamming them from the blue line. Like Moritz Seider gives the Wings options that they don't have right now, and that's big.
Yeah.
Another piece of Wings news we have to talk about. I'm going to spoil it because I don't really want to talk about it in the flashback, but Jacob Vrana has himself a 4-goal game. Fun little factoid. He's the first wing to have a 4-goal game since a player named Anthony Mantha, which we traded to the Washington Capitals, which is kind of a fun coincidence.
He's also the fastest player to do it for us.
He is, what was it, 3 games or 4 games? Was it 3 games?
I think 3.
But that I thought that was kind of like a little fun factoid, just the fact that you trade the last guy who got 4 goals in a game for you, and you pick up the next guy who does it with that exact trade.
So freaking funny. Oh.
Well, that's I was saying before this started, like, I think Detroit won this trade, and it's not anything to do with Mantha. I think Mantha's a phenomenal player. I think he's got all the potential in the world, and he's a proven goal scorer. But you got a legitimate replacement for Mantha, slightly different, skill sets and play styles, but a legitimate replacement for Mantha immediately, as well as a 1st and 2nd round pick, and Panic as well, another legitimate, NHL caliber player. The return makes losing Mantha worth it in my mind.
Oh, for sure. And like we said, no crap on Mantha. I love the guy. I wish nothing but the best for him. But in terms of the trade on paper right now, it's a win for us. Like, yes, they got a new player who's been scoring for them, but we also got a player who's scoring for us, as well as another player who fits in well, and then a 1st and a 2nd.
You make that trade 9 times out of 10. You make that trade.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I kind of equivalent the trade like this. We traded a bigger body in Anthony Mantha for a faster player in Jacob Vrana, but you kept the goal scoring ability.
Yep.
That was basically what you traded. And then you traded the fact that Mantha was a consistent paycheck. You knew exactly what he was going to cost. You knew the exact cap dollars, and that's what Washington needed. So Washington basically gave up a 1st round draft pick or a 2nd round draft pick, however you want to handle the Panic trade, for basically cap compliance, and to exchange an asset a little bit. They said, you know what, we don't need another speedy guy like Vrana. We want a guy who's a little bit bigger body with Mantha, and that was the trade. And I really don't. I mean, I think the Wings, quote unquote, won this trade, but you know what? I don't think there's a loser in this trade, though.
I agree.
No, of course not.
Because they were ready for Vrana to have a change of scenery. Vrana wanted different opportunities. You're right about the fact that he's in the last year of his contract, correct? He's an RFA, but it's still the last year of his contract.
Yeah, he's still got RFA status, but yes, he's due up for a contract.
So you got to, yeah. So
I think we're extending him. We're definitely extending him.
How do you not? I mean, realistically, how do you not? Even if you can get him for around what you got Mantha for, that's fantastic. But they got rid of a player that wanted to change of scenery, sort of wasn't quite clicking where the way they wanted him to, and that uncertainty for stability and someone that they thought could click with their roster.
Plus,
that's a win.
He's Czech, and so is Zadina.
Mm-hmm.
They've probably played together in the juniors and things like that, so they know each other. So those are two players that probably would gel well together. You want to keep them together.
I mean, I think he played with Hronek at the World Juniors when they're both together.
That's awesome.
So. I mean, you like that on teams. You like having people that play together in their national teams together. Like, look at the Red Wings when we had the Russian five blowing proportions out for everybody. Those five players freaking just dominated everyone.
So good.
Like, I think it was like one of their first shifts. The opponents like never touched the puck and they just scored. And it was just like, okay, we're doing this. I'm all in.
I mean, like, that's kind of the thing is also communication. As much as, we look at, the players on the ice, communication is also a thing where yes, the majority of the players in the NHL speak perfectly competent English, but just, it's a fact. It's easier to speak your native language. And if you have somebody who you can talk to and just sort of communicate with easier, it's easier to get chemistry with those sorts of players. And it seems like Zadina is having very good chemistry with Vrana. I'll touch on that a little bit in the flashback because I think that's actually something I want to talk about there because that got put on display in one of the games that they played this week.
Yep. They assisted each other.
The last piece of Wings news that I want to talk about is Jeff Blashill's coaching position next year. Now, I want to preface this by saying that it's not a fact. The Wings have not put out any sort of statement. It's not a reported news, but
grab your aluminum foil hats, everybody.
So Steve Yzerman had a press conference. What was it last? I think it was last week.
It was after the trade.
But anyway, he has a press conference last week or the week before, and they asked him, have you guys talked to Jeff or what's the thought process on Jeff Blashill for next season, basically? And Steve Yzerman pauses for just a second, and then he says, "I'm going to talk with Jeff after the season's done." I know that you can't say that signals a firing, but I don't like that answer. If I'm Jeff Blashill, to be honest, I just
no. At the same time, Yzerman's not going to say, we're firing him at the end of the season, so it's fine. Like, you're not going to say that either, but he's holding his cards close, but he hesitated, and that's what cost him a little bit. If you're going to say what he said, you got to say it right away. Just say, well, we're going to talk at the end of the season and see how we feel about everything, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that he was like, blah. So it's the hesitation. Like, it's how people know you're lying in certain things. Like, if you're trying to tell people things and you pause and you hesitate, you're probably lying. So,
or have there been conversations with whether it's a president of hockey or something like that, and there have been conversations just not with Blashill, and so you have to pause for a second. It's like, you don't want to announce anything that Blashill hasn't heard.
Yeah.
That's not how you want to find out whether you're being, we have high hopes or, whatever. You don't want to hear over, you want to be talked to. I mean, I definitely see where you're at with it. I just like to offer that different point because I don't have to have a tinfoil hat because it's not my coach. But I think that there is a lot of real reasons to say we're going to have a discussion at the end of the season, because there is a discussion of where's this team going. Blashill, we've talked about it tons of times. Great development coach. Does Yzerman think you can continue growing?
Can we win with him?
Yep, exactly.
That's simple.
How long do you still think we're going to be growing and developing?
Can you picture him hoisting the Stanley Cup?
Or do you see him for another 2 years while you develop and get guys in, and then you let him go?
You're aging your core.
Yeah.
I mean, Larkin, Bertuzzi. I was going to say Mantha, but he gone.
Yeah. But that's the $1 million question, right? Like, can you time Seider and can you time Raymond and get some of these young guys in, Joe Veleno even? Can you bring them in and develop them in enough time to also maximize winning with Larkin and Bertuzzi?
Yep. I mean, it's tough. He's not going to go back to the Griffins. There's no way. He's never going to coach AHL again after tasting the NHL. That's what he's got. The only thing I could see offering him to stay on with the Wings is being head of, or being in charge of like player development and coaching and blah blah blah, or training. But even that, does he think he can coach at the NHL level still?
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be room in Buffalo.
It's just a revolving door. It's a revolving door. New coach every week.
On the plus side, though, Rasmus Dahlin would actually get a pleasant development plan.
I mean, legitimately, they'd at least have one person in Buffalo that's focused on development. That'd be a refreshing change.
Tim, you said earlier, like, does Blashill know the conversation's going on? And all I can picture is like Yzerman and Draper sitting in Yzerman's office, and they're like, "Oh, Blashill, you can close the door," and he's just slowly closing it as they're all staring at each other, and he's like.
I imagine that final scene of The Godfather when he walks out. Hey, Blashill, could you go maybe get us some coffee? And he starts to walk out and he turns back and it's just.
I don't know. I kind of want to touch on that because I mean,
yeah,
it's a rumor thing that I think kind of has to be brought up. Plus, Blashill's not inked to a contract next season, so it's something the Wings have to be looking at now.
And as of right now, as Jordan and I talked about before the show started, Gerard Gallant is still a free agent coach.
Sign that man, please.
Man, I do like Gallant. We could also get Claude Julien's also available if I recall correctly.
But Jordan. At the same time, I mean, we talked to Max months ago now, and he estimated our rebuild would be where we're challenging again in what would he say, 3 years?
I think 3 years was the window that he gave.
Then maybe you keep him on.
But I don't know.
So if they keep Blashill on for 3 years, that puts Larkin at 27.
Okay.
Which is usually when forwards peak in the NHL. Larkin's not a Crosby level player. He's not a McDavid level player, but I do think he's on the skill level of a guy like Ryan Getzlaf or a guy like Jonathan Toews. One of those guys who can be your first line center, who can be a very responsible, very complete player, but is not cracking games open the way that Crosby McDavid can.
Yeah.
Do you think he's on the same level as like Toews, Kopitar, Bergeron, or because I guess I think of like that echelon level that's just below Crosby, Matthews, McDavid. I would put Backstrom maybe in that same thing as like peak Toews, peak Kopitar, peak Bergeron. Do you see, because I don't get to watch Larkin enough, do you see him being on that realistic level with them?
I think if he continues to develop at the trajectory that he's going right now, I think he does. Now, do I think he's going to be that for the next 5 or 6 years? No, but I think at some point he hits that level and he can hold it for 2 or 3 seasons. And maybe that's what the Wings need to win. And at that point, a guy like Joe Veleno can competently take the reins as second line center, or him and Rasmussen can trade the roles, and you're basically rolling with 2 second line centers, and you kind of just rely on on Larkin to be the guy. I mean, I'm trying to think. Chicago's a great example of not having 2, really franchise level centermen and still winning cups. I mean, Jonathan Toews was the definitive top line center for Chicago, and he didn't have, he had Patrick Kane, but he didn't have a number 2 definitive centerman behind him, and Chicago still won cups.
Yeah. In fact, we had a revolving door at that second line center for Kane for years and years, and it was Jonathan Toews who drove all pretty much. You had your first line center and your fourth line center, and then the second and third ones would come and go depending on if we were in cup contention or not. And that's really how we operated with centers. I look at, to me, it was the same way, God, it's tough. Larkin, I hope that he ends up, because I could see him, ending up in sort of maybe similar to like a Kopitar, maybe sort of similar to Mark Scheifele now. I don't know. There's a lot of comparisons, and it's I want to see him unleashed.
And like, that's the thing right now, Larkin, because of Detroit's blue line not being as strong as a lot of these other cup contenders are, he's forced to play a more defensively responsible game, and that kind of holds him back on the score sheet. It as much as players and fans like to say, I want to play a complete game, at the end of the day, these players love scoring goals.
Oh God, yeah.
Do they?
I think they do. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Wings topics that I have on tonight's show. Let's go ahead and transition to the Blackhawks. Unfortunately, Nick is still not with the show, so we're going to have to move on.
He's close.
We'll just talk and he'll jump in.
If Nick just jumps in at some random time, we'll just go with it.
What is a JT?
Jonathan Toews?
Is he just gonna shoot Jonathan Toews?
No, I think he's a little peeved that Jordan's over here talking about Dylan Larkin being on the same level as peak Johnny Toews. That's why I wanted some clarification.
Does Jonathan Toews do photo shoots for calendars with puppies? I don't think so.
Actually, I'm sure that, knowing McDonough, I'm sure that they did at some point. They did all of those marketing gimmicks.
We can actually talk about the Blackhawks side of the podcast.
Yeah,
now. We already touched on Jonathan Toews at the start of the show, but another big name Blackhawk for you guys through your years of cup contention, Andrew Shaw officially announced his retirement. He is done with the NHL. Not a generational guy, not a guy who was the guy in Chicago, but one of those guys it's a blue collar player, earns his way onto the roster, takes the position that he's being given, and just sort of rolls with it. The underdog guy.
I mean, what was he? He was a 5th round pick.
I think he was a 5th or a 4th.
Yeah. Full disclosure, of the Cup Dynasty eras, I mean, it's easy to love Jonathan Toews. It's easy to love the core guys, Hossa, Sharp. My personal favorite, my fan favorite was, here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Nick LePage. Ladies and gentlemen, he's joined us. And just in time. I'm so excited, my man, because we are here.
Shoot Jonathan Toews, though.
So. There he is. I was just ramping up. I'm glad you're here. I was ready to, profess my undying love for Andrew Shaw, a man that just exuded what Chicago hockey is all about, that blue collar lunch pail hockey, a kid that played with a chip on his shoulder. He was undersized, not DeBrincat or Cole Caulfield undersized, but still definitely undersized for his style of play. I was saying before the podcast, I remember watching his first game where he gets into the fight, gets on his second shift. He gets off, gets back out and scores a goal. And I'm just like, I'm going to get that guy's jersey. I love that. He has had an entire career of outworking, out hustling, using anything at his disposal to either score or irritate or instigate. Oh man, we knew it was coming. We know it's the right decision. But man, it doesn't make it hurt any less. That video with, thanks for giving a mud a home, and talking about his family and saying, for the first time in my life, I'm going to listen to the doctors. Oh man, I wish nothing but the best for Andrew Shaw. I love him.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, he embodied Chicago culture. He was the blue collar player. I mean, it sucks. It's just he was nothing sucks. It's just it's an awesome career for him. 500 games 100%. Played, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. he was passed up in the draft twice. He was passed over in the draft twice, and the Hawks took a chance on him with a 6th-round pick. And I mean, what a career! I mean, because a guy like that, after being passed up twice, taking the 6th round, you often don't make it. And his mentality, his style, he's just like, what, I'm going to work my ass off and I'm going to do what I can. And he played like Stan Bowman had a quote today where he said his first training camp, he was playing like it was Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. So I mean, as much as Andrew Shaw was Andrew Shaw, like he would do some dumb things, but that was him.
Who doesn't though?
No, I know. I mean, I love him for it. Like you would have a bad penalty here and there, but like that's why he played the style he did. He got under team skin.
I would say that he drew more penalties than he took. He was a remarkable player for like growth and maturity. Like when he came back to the Hawks his second time, I thought he was playing smarter. I thought he was playing some of the best skilled hockey that we had seen of him, especially this year before he got hurt again. He still played with that grit and sandpaper, but you could see he was more focused on making plays and, puck retrieval. And not even just everything that he's done on the ice, his locker room presence. Every single Hawks player that's ever interacted with him is like, oh, Shaw's the guy in the room. Jonathan Toews is the one voice, Seabrook is a booming voice, but the loudest, yippiest, annoyingest voice, that's Andrew Shaw, always. What did Brandon Hagel say today? He's like, yeah, I don't know if we're going to miss him flexing in the mirror. Well, we probably will.
We probably will still.
I loved what Shaw said about our guy, Brandon Hagel, where he talked about like, I hope that Hagel carries on like my role with this team because I see a lot of myself in Hagel. Although he said something like, I think he's a lot more skilled than me, which is, it's classic Shaw. But I think that he does. Nick, I feel like all the things that excite us and get us all fired up about Hagel this year, I don't know about you, but I see a lot of Shaw every time he's on the ice.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just that, like you said, that grit is just in him. Like they work. Like they know they are not the most elite player in the league. So guess what? They're going to outwork you. And that's what Shaw did for 500 plus games in his NHL career. And
you love to see it.
And it's just sad. Like, but like we didn't get to really.
They're sweet.
Yeah. We didn't really get to enjoy that return because concussions derailed. But the best thing is I've seen Emily Kaplan and a couple other beat writers. They said Shaw's in a good place. He's happy he's making this decision. And, good for his family. He's get to spend some family time. He had a hell of a career. It's just awesome. I mean, just what a story Andrew Shaw was. He was that underdog story that you really cheer for all the time. So hell of a career, Shawzy.
He embodied the idea of the mutt. And you're right. I love the fact that, when he came back after his last concussion and to start this season, he sort of made this thing about how I was able to reflect on what life after hockey looks like. And I am at peace with that. Whenever it comes, there is life after hockey and I'm okay with it. So like hearing that and knowing that he's already sort of there, that's so important. Cause look at Jeremy Colleton with the way concussions derailed his career.
Yeah.
Like,
Franzen.
Yeah.
Johan Franzen.
God, Pronger. Like the list goes on and on of guys. I'm so thankful that even though the concussions made the decision for him, but he was able to step away and make because he could have said, no, I'm going back in. He still went out on what are ostensibly his terms. Mm-hmm. And Chicago has nothing but love for Andrew Shaw. And I cannot wait to, well, what did it say? The first thing he's going to do now, he's going to go build a house with his dad. Like, that's what he is.
He did. We've talked about Yzerman retiring. I mean, Yzerman, his reasoning was he wanted to walk away before the game walked away from him.
Yeah.
And I think Shaw was closer to that line than Yzerman was, or Lidstrom was, because Lidstrom I think could have kept playing for a couple more years, fine. But Shaw was like at that crossroads where it's like, if I keep going, the game will walk away from me.
I think
And
yeah.
he
No,
made
no,
that
sorry,
right
Dave.
choice.
Yeah, he did, and I think it kind of stood out to me. Literally, one of his first lines in his goodbye was, you got to know when it's time to step. Like
Yeah.
it was addressing mostly all athletes. Like if it's time, it's time. Like you can't keep saying no to your body. But I mean, we're
Tom
all
Brady's body just keeps getting better and better.
Well, yeah, he keeps harvesting souls or whatever to keep, fuel himself.
He's like, what's his name? Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat. I want your soul.
I mean, we're always gonna have the headbutt goal that never happened.
Always.
But and then we love shin pads here in Chicago. So
Always.
Andrew Shaw gave us some amazing memories during that cup run. He's gonna be part of history forever. And yeah, just hell of a career, Shawzy. And it's gonna be weird. It's just another Blackhawk Stanley Cup champion. That's the latest to retire. So it hits the heart hard, boys.
You guys have had 2 retirements this year.
3.
That's right.
When you look at Crawford to start the year,
Seabrook and then
Crawford, Seabrook.
Well, technically, Crawford wasn't a Hawk.
Oh my! Don't get it.
I will listen. He didn't play a game for New Jersey. It doesn't count.
He did,
but
put
yeah,
on the sweater.
It's a weird. Host is coming off the books finally for Arizona, so he's like officially going to be able to retire.
Jordan, is Weiss still on our books?
No, I think we're done. This was his last year, I think.
Oh, thank God. I was like, wait, people are still in books. That made me think of Weiss.
That's fair. But no, Nick, I
cold sweats.
100% agree with you. I mean, this city loves Andrew Shaw, and we're thrilled and privileged to have gotten to watch him in the time that we had with him.
Yep. We absolutely have been.
I mean, like you look at any of the cup contenders, like the teams that are consistent cup contenders. I mean, we talked about development, but also every cup contender that I can think of that has stayed cup contenders, they've taken guys low in the draft, and those guys have really just worked super hard to stay on their rosters, not because they're super skilled, but they put the effort in. Shaw's a great example of that. Draper's a great example for Detroit. I mean, Hagel's an example for Chicago right now, a guy who people were not looking at and saying definitive second line guy or definitive third line guy. But you know what? Every team that stays competitive has a couple of those guys who just, they put the reps in, they put the effort in, they show up every day and they do a job. Andrew Shaw was one of those guys for Chicago. Was he always silky flashy? No. But again, you don't need every player to be flashy and do crazy stuff with the puck. Sometimes you just need a guy to play the boards and do it competently.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you nailed it on the head. I mean, when you look at an Andrew Shaw highlight reel, it's not going to be pretty goals. It's going to be some hits, some chirping, and some redirects. So he was just. I see. There was something on today where Andrew Shaw might be one of Stan Bowman's best draft picks ever. Like he was a 6th-round pick. He exceeded expectations above and beyond, and it's just that guy you needed for like a playoff team needs. Just a pain in the ass that you don't want to play against. And goddamn, now that we're talking about it, I'm gonna miss the guy.
100%. I mean, you think about our Stanley Cup era, and you had Toews, Kane, Sharp, Hossa. I'm trying to think. We had more firepower, and it's just we've had so many people in and out. But when you've got those 4 guys, you don't need another flashy, playmate. Even for Stieg, you don't need another, sniper or, flashy playmaker. You need someone who makes space and announces their presence the minute they're on the ice. And man, that was Andrew Shaw to a T. I'll never forget the 2013 Cup run playing against Boston, and you just see him slam into Zdeno Chara, and he came up to like what looked like his belly button. It was almost cartoonish, but he just rammed into him, and he's like, "Let's go. I'm not a coward. Let's go."
Yeah,
he was an animal.
He truly was one of a kind, man. That was, it's a tough one. It's a tough
He's
game.
I own one Hawks home jersey, and it's Andrew Shaw.
We can move on to other Hawks news. The Hawks signed Riley Stillman to a 3-year contract, $1.35 million per year. I think he projects out basically as like a middle pair, bottom pair defenseman. But you know what? For $1.35 million, it's not bad.
You know what this is? That's Nikita Zadorov's replacement.
Yeah.
I like Stillman though. So, and I think that's a fair value for Riley Stillman. We've seen what he plays the same style as Nikita, big guy. He's physical. He's not afraid to, lay a body on someone. And he's also he has more potential with the puck. Like that's his, I think
he seems more comfortable with the puck. Cause again, I still will say, I really like Zadorov. I like his personality. I like his defensive metrics. I like his play away from the puck for the most part. The minute he touches the puck, he's got most of the bad plays that he has that end up in goals were turnovers when he had the puck, not when he didn't have the puck. If Stillman, just from watching his play, the eye test and stuff, he seems more comfortable with the puck. He still plays the body more. He's still a physical guy. I'd be thrilled with him as a third pairing guy at that cost. But if when he touches the puck, he can get it out. He can make the plays, not even, flashy plays, but he can make serviceable plays. Then that's an improvement. I like Zadorov a lot, but I think you're right, Nick. This is his replacement.
It is. And, that's Zadorov's ceiling at this point. I think he's a below average top 4 guy. He make an okay top 6. But I think Stillman just has that higher ceiling, and that's ultimately what Stan Bowman is really going to make that decision on. And, I like the signing, though. I'm a big Riley Stillman fan. I didn't expect much from him when we got him from Florida, but he has impressed me. Well,
we were saying at the time of the trade, Borgstrom was the big piece, and everyone else was just, okay, we're taking Connolly's contract. Stillman's a throw-in, and Borgstrom's like the tantalizing potential prospect. I think that they definitely had a better sense of what they were looking for in Stillman than maybe, like, I know certainly I didn't know that much about him. But then seeing him play, they definitely, and the fact that we've been out a defenseman like every game, so he's been having to do more. I think we could do a whole lot worse than Stillman, and especially at that cost. I don't think that Zadorov is 100% out, but I think he's certainly going to price himself out.
Yeah, I mean, this could also just be a bargaining chip, but I think, it's looking like Nikita might be gone. We'll see. But, I think it's a very fair deal for a guy like Riley Stillman. 3 years. 3 years is I'm shocked they actually went right away with 3 years, but I like it. I'm not nothing to hate.
I mean, at that price, that's under $2 million.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if he just is a bottom 6 defenseman or even a 7th defenseman, that's not terrible under $2 million.
No, yeah.
And if he thrives at all, we've had so many guys doing his job for a whole lot more money than that. I'll take this.
The last piece of Hawks news I want to talk about is the fact that the Blackhawks are, as of this moment, out of a playoff spot. And we talked about this last week. The other teams are basically getting to play feast on them right now with the other teams that they play. The Hawks, as much as I know fans want to see them in the playoffs, it's not looking like that's going to happen this season, especially with the schedule that's coming up. And we'll touch on that a little bit, like the schedules. But, I mean, Tim and Nick, what are your guys' opinions on what the Hawks should be doing for these last, 10 or so games that are left in the season now that you can't say they're definitively out, but if you're being realistic, it looks like the Hawks are out.
I think they should go. I mean, they kind of been doing the right thing. I think they should probably just put those young guys in the bigger situations again. I know they kind of shot away with it oh, okay, we're in a big playoff spot. I mean, we've seen it in overtime where it's like Doc Hagel and Pia Suter, but I want to see those young guys in big situations. The nail is essentially damn near in the coffin. It's not quite completely shut, but
it's like somebody forgot to do that extra tap.
It's like, oh wait, I got to go back and do that tomorrow. But that we'll get into that series in a little bit. But it's I want to see them, utilize those young guys. That was the whole plan this season. We're essentially out of it. use those young guys, put them in big spots. Let's see what we got on clutch situations.
I could not agree more. I mean, my first thought the minute Jordan asked about that was stop double and triple shifting Kane.
Yeah, that's a big one too.
Let Kane play a normal amount of ice time. Let Keith play a normal amount of ice time. There is no reason at this point to burn these guys out by double and triple shifting them and having Keith play 27 to 30 minutes a game, or Kane playing in the high 20s. Let Khrushchev take some extra shifts, get Strome back out there to either see what we've got or boost his trade value, whatever the future is for Strome at this point. Let Gaudette have some time that he wouldn't have had. Now's the time to take risks because it doesn't matter. Now it's all about getting these guys ready for next year at this point.
Yeah, I think put their feet to the fire a little. Like, what do they have to lose? They could, they may get outclassed by the Tampa Bay Lightning's first line and things like that. But give Patrick Kane a rest. He's not fighting for a playoff spot. Don't wear him out, risk injury, and give these young guys some learning experiences. They make mistakes. Can they learn from them? Most likely.
To me, this is a chance to see where Philip Khrushchev is at. Let him take a face off against Braden Point. Let him square off against, Sebastian Aho or a couple of these guys. I want to know if he has the potential to be a second line center, or if, as Toews, comes back and then starts to move down as he just simply gets older. I want to see what we have in Khrushchev as a center. I maybe play around more with Pius Suter. We've got guys that we know there are options. I mean, look at the way that we've played around with Hagel this year and we can put him anywhere. This is great. Even Hinostroza, start making plans and seeing where the projection's at. That's what I want to see at this point.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect spot to put him. Really, there's no reason to rat out your vets at this point. Let them rest. You don't know what next season's going to entail. So let's see the kids shine.
I mean, we kind of talked about this at the start of the show with a lot of, the veterans out of the lineup. Like, these kids have had to step into those moments where you got stress on your shoulders. You got to carry the backpack, so to speak. It's not the worst thing in the world if management says to these kids, the pressure's off now, go play comfortable and just get used to being, maybe double shifted like Kane does on the regular, or get used to playing against some harder competition who, you're probably still going to lose against, but you can now lose and fail, but gain experience and knowledge without having the added weight of, crap, my mistake cost us the game and it's going to cost us a playoff spot.
Yep.
It creates a great conductive learning environment where failure isn't punished and it's not something that hangs over your head for forever.
Yeah, no, I mean, failure is a good thing at times. You learn from it. So, I mean, Jeremy Colleton
failing, if you can learn from failing, you grow. Like, everyone fails at some point.
Yeah.
And it's a growth mindset. You're going to fail at some point, and it's how you react to that. Do you grow from it, or do you get stuck in this fixed mindset?
Yeah, I mean, Colleton's on that. He's big on that progression isn't linear mentality. So, if you're going to fail, this is a good time to do it, because right now it doesn't really matter that much. So go get that experience.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, part of my job, I do a lot of hiring and interviewing, and I like to see and find out how have you responded to adversity? I would much rather, work with or, interact with somebody, trust them in a situation when I know they've been through the fire, or they've failed, or they've faced adversity and they've come out the other side of it. When it's always easier when things are just blowing through, you never have to figure out, how do I adjust? Okay, this isn't working. We see it all the time with kids that were all superstars in the CHL, where they struggle with their game translating. And it's oh God, I guess I can't just muscle through or out the speed past these people anymore. How do you adjust? That's what I want to see the rest of this year.
Exactly.
You guys touched on Toews already, right?
Yeah, but if I want to hear your thoughts, my dude.
I'll throw in real quick. I know. Sorry, boys.
Nah.
Softball ran long, but I mean, that was the most refreshing thing I think we've, like, even after the Hawks, what they've done this year and like kind of shocked us, seeing news about Toews that he's getting healthy. He's not even on track of playing, that just he's healthy.
Just getting better.
Yeah. And that was promising. Like, it was, we were kind of asking, we were asking off air, like, when are we going to get news? When are we going to get news? When are we going to get news? We didn't want to talk about it publicly, and we got news. So that it's refreshing. I'm happy to see Toews is getting better, doing better than he was before. And, now there's a sign of light that we might have our captain back next year. So I'm thrilled.
There you go.
It's so exciting.
Sorry, I had to just chime in about it.
No, good. Yeah.
So that's it for news for this week. We'll go ahead and move on to the flashback and the flash forward segment of the show. Now, if you haven't watched the show, basically what we do is we recap the week that was and the week that's going to be, both for the Hawks and the Wings, and just sort of expectations of what we think is going to happen and recapping what did happen. So we started with Wings news mainly for the show. So we'll go ahead and just start with them for the flashback segment. The Wings played against the Dallas Stars a whopping 4 times. 4 times.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, 4.
And you had one job.
We did it one of those times.
Well, that's something.
The Wings did it one time, and Jonathan Bernier did it another time.
Yeah, it's actually very fair. Yeah.
So 3 of the 4 games were losses. They had a 3-2 loss, a 5-2 loss, a 7-3 win, and a 2-1 loss.
In overtime, wasn't it?
Yes, it was an overtime loss. So the first 2 losses versus Dallas, we expected those losses to happen. Well, I think me and you were both pretty fair about saying it's probably going to be like a 3-1 split this week.
I think I texted something like, I think we split 2-2, and it's probably going to be, I think I said, I don't remember because my arm was in a lot of pain, but I think I said it was like either we split each series. So like 1 game win, 1 game loss, 1 win, 1 loss. But that was wrong.
So the 7-3 win, that was when Jacob Verana basically arrived and just went completely off.
That was a beaut.
The 2-1 loss, Jonathan Bernier put on a show, and I mean a show. What do you have? Like, you said 46 saves or something like that before overtime?
50 saves because it was 52 shots. So it took them 46 shots to score their first goal. I think it was 46.
If Jonathan Bernier is not in the running for the Vezina at the end of this season, I will be surprised. And I know they try to award that based on, wins and losses, but it's not Jonathan Bernier's fault. The team in front of him cannot score goals.
I do think that there should be some sort of goalie award that takes into account, you played on that team.
Sorry, your team sucked.
But you
tried award.
But you did that, like Lars Olmark. Is not Lars Olmark. What's the name of Buffalo's goalie when he's not injured? It's Olmark.
Linus.
Okay, Linus. Lars Olmark, I think, might be from Metallica or something like that. But like Bernier, Olmark, goalies that like have done remarkable things in a season where their team was not good. It really wasn't their fault. I do think Bernier should get more discussion and more love than he's getting nationally right now.
Currently a .917% save percentage.
That's playing behind the Wings' weak defense.
Yeah.
In an incredibly like top heavy stacked Central Division.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Mm.
how many shots did they finish with? I know I've seen the
52.
stats. No, not Dallas.
Oh,
Detroit.
17.
Because I remember
17.
after, what was it? Halfway through the second, they had 6 shots to like.
Yeah.
It was 41-6 at one
17.
point because I remember the tweet.
That's
Good
like
God.
me when I play. There's a game that's on Steam and on the Switch called Super Blood Hockey. Which
Okay,
is
yeah.
it's a hell of a fun game, and it will go down the stats between me and my opponents, and I have like 70 shots to their 15 and 140 hits to their 60 hits, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we call. That's what in the NHL community they call ice tilt.
Yeah.
It's like Detroit's up 1-0, and they have 6 shots to Dallas is 42.
Yeah. Ice tilt's not real. They don't really do that.
It exists in life.
But this week pretty much went as much as we expected for the Wings. Now,
Yeah.
Jacob Verana's 4-goal game was an awesome surprise. And the fact that Detroit found some really weird ways to get goals. The Richard Panik goal where Dallas's goalie thought that he had it, and he's like, "Oh, it's still here. Oops."
That was so weird.
That was so fun.
I mean, David, do you have any other takeaways aside from that?
Bernier's the Bernier wall. Get it?
It's close to Berlin, right? All right.
Yeah.
Right?
Damn it, Nick. God damn it. Way to kill the joke.
Oh, I mean, Ron is a beauty, guys.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Just awesome.
You want to talk about him and Zadina together?
Yeah, we can talk about them real quick. Zadina was sneakily good these games. The 7-3 win that he had versus Dallas, I want to say it was two of Verana's goals were directly result of Zadina. He had a beautiful keep in the zone and just skates off to the side, lets Verana get space, passes over, the feed happens. So the guy on Facebook who, and I'm not going to name names, but who told me, and I quote, Zadina is average at best.
That's such a hot take.
I don't know what team you're watching and what player you're watching, but that kid is not average. That kid absolutely is going to be.
I was going to say, to be fair, he's not Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or even Austin Matthews.
But why isn't he Wayne Gretzky?
Zadina. Yeah, why isn't he Gretzky yet? Dude on Facebook. You know what? I bet he comments other stupid stuff on Facebook, like someone's going to take all his hamburgers away. Stupid idiot.
But no, I really thought Philip Zadina was good this series as well.
Yeah. Zadina's showed up and answered like he has been progressing all year in my mind, watching his style of play. Again, we're going to talk about this in the manage expectations section, but like the plays that I'm seeing, I knew he was good with the puck.
Mm-hmm.
I am incredibly, every time that I get to watch him and I'm watching his play without the puck, I genuinely get more and more excited with he is adapting. Mm-hmm. He is adjusting his game to fit an NHL style. And his play without the puck is making him a better teammate, a better line mate, and a better overall player. And I think that was on display in this series.
Yeah, as we were saying before Nick joined us, Jordan brought up earlier that a lot of people figured Patrick Kane was going to be, it sounds mean, but a one-way player, offensive player. And that was what everyone's expectations were with Zadina. He was just going to be a guy that shoots the puck. He's going to shoot the puck. And as we've seen, he has developed an incredible defensive game and has made himself into a pretty remarkable two-way player this young in his career.
Mm-hmm. And again, what would he look like Larkin, unleashed? On a team that didn't constantly have to worry about shots on goal, that didn't, that was a more developed team. And that's the thing that I want to see is, in Zadina. What can he do when he's off the leash?
Go for Gallant.
But no, I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit in the managed expectations part of the show that we're going to do at the end. But that was, I think, really the Wings week in a nutshell. The Hawks, and you guys had 2 losses to Nashville, and then you won once. So you guys played 3 games.
You finally got them.
It wasn't a shutout.
You got that banner, like George W. Bush had way back when. Mission accomplished. You got him.
Yep, that is the epitome of little victories.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, that Nashville, the one win we did get. What a game!
Yes, 100%.
Fun stuff.
I was declaring the Hawks dead. I was, I'm like, oh, this game's over.
Text.
This game's over. Hawks are dead. And then,
what's that?
The team just, they didn't say no. They're like, no, we're not.
As
Vinny
Hinney.
You don't get a bagel tomorrow.
I mean, what? It was 4-1 with half the game left, 10 minutes left in the third. And then Kalanick, quick one, Hinostroza, quick one. It's like, hold on.
We could do this.
It just, and then, I mean, it's going to be known as the Bash Brothers game because that quote after the game with Brandon Hagel and Vinny Hinostroza.
That gets me so fired up.
Hagel said to Hinostroza, he said he was saying it in between the intermissions. If we get out there, let's be Bash Brothers. We got out there and we're Bash Brothers. Like, that gets me fired up. Vinny Hinostroza and Brandon Hagel, they're clicking, they're Bash Brothers, and, print the T-shirts.
I love it. So, yeah, that win, I think that's what makes me a little angry, is that we could do that more. Now, I will say Nashville, Juicy Saros, however you pronounce his name, has been on fire against us. There are a lot of goals that would have gone in under different goalies or just different nights. But Saros has been phenomenal this year. I give him a lot of goalie love too.
Someone wronged him in Chicago when he was visiting there once. He's like, "Oh, what a wonderful city." And someone like yelled at him as he was walking across the street. And he's like, "Never again."
That'll happen.
Never again. No, I know for sure that happens.
So essentially after this series, the Hawks are out of it. That's as we were kind of hinting at earlier. So it was the biggest series of the season, and 2 out of the 3 games they came out pretty flat. So it's tough. Nashville had our number all year. We were optimistic a little bit, but
I was bullish. But in my defense, it was do or die. You're right. This was our playoffs.
Yeah.
These were the most important games of the year. And I just, knowing this team and not necessarily what they're capable of, but the fire that they've got, I thought maybe that's enough to will us over the edge. And we're just not there yet. And that's something that I'm coming to terms with, that there's a lot that I saw that once we polish it a bit, we'll get them next year.
It's tough.
It is. Oh, it doesn't make it suck less.
It's tough.
So with that being said, who are you guys the stars of the week for Chicago?
Ooh, Nick, do you want to go first?
I'm gonna go with Bash Brother number 1, Vinny Hinostroza.
All right, I dig it.
I think he had 4 or 5 points this week. And that's continuing off a hot week from the week before. He's continuing to exceed expectations. We knew he had this in him, but he's still exceeding our expectations or what he was before. Like, he's a playmaker.
Yeah.
And he's a Bash Brother now too. So it's just, so Vinny Hinostroza, my player of the week. He kind of ignited the Hawks with that comeback against Nashville on Wednesday night. So player of the week, Vinny.
I was gonna go with the other Bash Brother, but literally right about 2 seconds ago, Wyatt Kalnick popped in my head.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, the way he has leapt people on the depth chart, I'm blown away. I'm blown away by his poise, his comfortability on the ice. He's been able to provide some big key goals for us. We stole him from Philly basically and promised him ice time, and then we didn't give him ice time for a long time. But once he's been in, Colleton pretty much said the other day that if he's healthy, he's in for the rest of the year. That's a huge deal. He's left Mitchell, he's left Beaudin. Like, it's him and Boquist in my mind, and then everyone else is fighting. And that's for a team that's got a ton of young defensemen and a lot of really cool potential. Wyatt Kalnick has risen above it and is producing, and he's comfortable. That's exciting to me.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head there, Tim.
David, who is your player of the week for the Wings?
I gotta go with Jake the Snake, baby.
All
Jake
right.
Verana, man, he has been impressive with his short time with us so far, and it's even been more impressive that he's had a 4-goal game. I can't not pick him after that.
That's true.
I want to say Jacob Verana is mine as well. I did like Bernier this week, though. The game versus Dallas was insane. Just in my opinion, as a goalie, just as insane as Jacob Verana's game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think the goaltending was what lost Detroit these games this week, so I got to go with Bernier.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a good choice. The Bernier wall.
Oh, like the Berlin Wall.
Stupid.
Oh, we can do the flash forward now. So
That's
the
the
weeks or the Wings' upcoming week looks as follows. There's going to be a game versus Columbus, a game versus Carolina, and then 2 games versus Tampa.
If we get 1 win this week, I think it's Columbus.
Yeah,
I think out of those games, if we can get a win, I think it's Columbus. Every other game, I don't project a win.
No,
So 1 and 3.
Yeah, I think 1 through is a pretty fair split. I think Columbus is the winnable one. Maybe we can squeak an overtime win versus Carolina. Maybe. The Tampa games are both losses, in my opinion.
We pissed Tampa off when we beat them that last time. They're like, no.
They do that.
You guys learned that firsthand.
But yeah, it's not going to be a good not a good week for the Wings. The fortunate thing for the Hawks, though, is if they really are trying to stay in the playoff hunt, the only team they're going to give points to who's not solidified their spot there is Carolina, maybe. But even then, Carolina's right up there with Tampa. So
yeah, let's not even talk playoffs anymore.
I just hope everybody does their best and has fun.
Everybody gets orange slices. You know?
What more could you ask for? What's our structure this week? I know we're playing Carolina tomorrow.
Tampa's tomorrow.
Is Tampa tomorrow?
Yeah, you guys are playing Tampa, and then you play against the Florida Panthers twice.
Oh, gross.
And then you have Carolina next Monday.
I think we can take. I think we can take at least one of the games against the Panthers.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think that we take Tampa to overtime. We lose the next game to Florida, and then we take the one to Florida. Okay. But we're getting an overtime point out of Tampa. I'm not afraid of Tampa.
Yeah, I'm with you on there, Tim. I think the more of our matchups with Tampa besides opening night, it's been actually tough fought battles. So
yeah, they're. Yeah, go ahead.
You've got Blackhawks, Bash Brothers.
We've seen overtime. Yeah. Now they're the Bash. We have the Bash Brothers now, but we've seen overtime with Tampa quite a bit. Or in the final seconds of the third period, Tampa finds the back of the net. Yeah, I can see overtime against Tampa, but I do think we take one against Florida.
Okay, 1-1-1.
So, not a bad overall week for you guys, though, which is good.
No.
So that's basically it for the Wings and the Hawks news and all that sort of stuff. At this point, I want to talk about managing expectations for the clubs, basically sort of reflecting back on this season because the season's almost over. I mean, there's 9 or 10 games left, I think, on the schedule, and then the season's over. The teams have sort of basically shown what they were this season. Could a player have, a breakout these next couple of games? Yeah, sure. But for the most part, you've seen what you're going to see out of these clubs. Now, David, me and you, we walked into the season and we said the Wings are probably going to be a bottom feeder club, and they have been by all accounts.
I expected nothing, and I'm not that hurt. I'm more excited this year than I was last year. We still have some dead weight that needs to go with guys like Nielsen, and as much as I loved him in the past, Helm, he's seen better days. But the future is bright. It's kind of like you fell down the hill last year and slammed your face into the ground, and then you look up covered in mud and you see the sun kind of shining through the mud. That's this year. We can see the sun a bit. So
wiped your face off a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
I like that.
But it is what it is. I wasn't expecting us to all of a sudden be a playoff contending team this year. That's not an expectation I have. I didn't expect Zadina to have a 50-goal season this year. That's not an expectation to have. He's still growing and developing. Yeah, I expected nothing, and I'm excited for the future.
I really like the growth that we saw from the young guys. I think Michael Rasmussen has really started to step into his own. Zadina has continued to have and show flashes of that truly elite potential. We saw it with a lot of the feeds and keeps this season. The first one that comes to mind is the beautiful feed from behind the net to Robbie Fabry to Bobby Ryan in front of the net. And another thing to note is Detroit had Tyler Bertuzzi gone basically the whole season.
Yeah.
Robbie
Larkin gone
Fabry
for a good portion.
Yep, Larkin was out for a decent portion. But what's his name? Robbie Fabry has been out for a decent portion. Bobby Ryan's been out
for a bit.
Like Detroit was truly playing as a skeleton of what it had to play with, and the young kids stepped up in those situations a decent amount. Now, did they take over games? No, but you saw steps forward, and that's what you need to see in a rebuild. Did Grice show that he could be a competent goaltender? Yeah. Was he a certified starter? Nope. But you know what? Detroit's goaltending showed goaltending's not this team's issue right now. And I expected nothing, and I got a couple surprises, especially in Michael Rasmussen. So
I'm very happy to see him doing well. And Evgeny Svechnikov has been doing well with the chances he gets. So hopefully they both keep getting chances.
I feel like Giovanni Smith has also been a big bright spot for you guys this year. I don't know. I always really, really like when he makes it on the ice.
I always really like when he makes his fist into someone's face multiple
I mean,
times.
yes, big fan of that.
Huge fan.
Like he's another player though. Like he's been like a fringe roster player this year. He hasn't gotten, a full-time spot, but I think next year again,
once we see deadweight gone,
yeah,
that's it. The Wings have, I think it's three players or four players who are inked through next season, and that's it. Like you've got Larkin inked, you've got Bernier and Grice inked. You got Fabry inked. But in terms of like the forward and defenseman pool, you have only like 3 or 4 players who are inked for next season. So you're going to get to see guys leave, like Darren Helm, for example. Maybe a player like Giovanni Smith takes his spot. You get
Nielsen's
more looks.
2?
Is it?
Nielsen still has 2 years left.
Oh, no.
Wow. This year and next year.
Okay.
So he's got one more year.
Jesus, there's a lot of ones. So, yeah, to put it in terms, Darren Helm, 1 UFA.
He'll be gone.
Verano,
I don't
1
think he's coming back.
RFA. Filppula, 1 UFA. Glendening, 1 UFA. Ernie, 1 RFA. Rasmussen, 1 RFA. Svechnikov, 1 RFA. Gagne, Jesus criminy.
Yeah,
so many ones.
Detroit has a lot of contracts to sign this year, and I think they're going to get to make some big decisions. And I think a lot of the young kids have proved that they're going to get to stay with the club this year. Rasmussen showed that he deserves a spot. Smith has shown.
We still have Weiss for this last year.
Is he? Okay, so he's got 1 more year.
1.666667 ends this year. It ends this year. Abdicator we still have for the next
forever.
25-26. 25-26, about $1 million.
But I don't know. I liked what we saw from Detroit this season in terms of growth, not the product on the ice. But again, we walked in knowing that this team was not going to be a playoff team. We knew it was going to be a bottom feeder. And you know what? I'm happy with what we saw from growth. Tim and Nick, what do you guys have sort of like your managing expectations for the Hawks this season? Because you guys kind of overperformed, I think, a little bit.
I mean, it's so interesting because we both, I think, went into this not expecting anything as well. I mean, my God, Crawford was gone. We had 3 really unknown goalies. Our captain and number 1 center was out for the year. Our number 2 center and projected number 1 for the future center was out for what was going to be the year. Nylander, who was a depth scorer, was out for the year. It was almost cartoonish that we're like, well, I guess it's going to be Kane and the kids. And that said, we had so many exciting moments, but I did also get hurt a little bit because for the first time in a long, and it was a good hurt because for the first time in a long time, we had chances again. It's not like the last 2 years where you're looking and you're like, oh man, this is just bad. I think expectation wise, purely, going back to the topic of managing expectations of players, The one thing that I'm starting to see that I really think we should pump the brakes on a little bit is I'm seeing some serious negativity on Kirby Dach at times, that he's not lighting the lamp, that he's not, blowing people out of the water with offense. Something I think we need to remember is we didn't even expect him back this year.
He shouldn't be playing right now.
Yeah, his wrist is still hurting. Like, he's medically cleared. Everyone has cleared him to play. I scared David away. That happens. But like, he's not 100% yet. So and he didn't skate, or he was skating, but like, he wasn't getting in the reps with the rest of the team for a lot of the year. The fact that he is out at all and putting himself, absorbing hits, giving out hits, making plays. He's still got a good couple of assists and a couple goals, I think. He's still super exciting to watch. And I've seen some of those overtime plays with him to Hagel. The assists that he's getting are because he's using his body. He's creating opportunities. It's easy for us to look at Hagel or Hinostroza or Suter and be like, or even DeBrincat, where it's like, oh my goodness, I'm so thrilled with their projection and potential. And then look at Dach simply because he's got that, albatross of 3rd overall pick. And it's like, slow down. The kid's 20, 19. He's somewhere around there. He's progressing. This is bonus play right now. I don't know. Where are you at, Nick?
Oh yeah. I mean, you nailed on the head, because it's hard to manage expectations at the beginning of the season when he didn't have any.
Yeah.
Like, we had Max Boltman on, and he said the Hawks are going to be a bottom feeder. Like, we know, he's like, I don't know about your goaltending. Guess what? We have two very competent goalies, Kevin Lankinen. And I know he wasn't the guy stealing victories like he was at the beginning of the season, but he's kept us in games. And that's with our defense not playing its best lately. Like, he's keeping us in games. Alex DeBrincat, I think that was to see him bounce back. That was massive. That was massive. I mean, I know this season was mostly about the kids, but we needed a bounce back out of DeBrincat. One thing I feel like, I was kind of nervous on Kubalik.
Yeah,
he shows that he is what he is. He's that goal scorer. He's that sniper that you're going to have. Thrilled to see that. And then obviously, the kids. We didn't know what Philip Kurashev ensued. We didn't know what Pius Suter ensued. We didn't know how Adam Boquist bounced back. Ian Mitchell, we see flashes in the pan of what he could be. And then, like I said, our goalies, Kevin Lankinen, we didn't even think he would be anything. Like,
he started the year as the 3rd goalie. Yeah. And again, we've even seen growth from Malcolm Subban, which a lot of people didn't think. They were like, okay, he's reached where he's at. Is he going to get any better? I know that we didn't get to see Delia this year, but frankly, between the play of both of them, they made it hard to justify putting Delia in. And that's nothing against Delia. It's that you've got something that's working. Subban still got to work on some of those rebounds, but so does Lankinen. They both have growth to do. But their actual play and what they bring to the team, I've been blown away by how they've worked and how they've earned their places. This was just a year of let's see what happens. And we saw what happens, and the future is really actually exciting.
Yeah, it is. And, the song lyric goes, I mean, we felt pain this year, and I didn't expect to feel pain. And, I'd rather feel pain than nothing at all.
I didn't think and that was last year for me watching the Hawks. By halfway through the season, I stopped feeling anything with it. It was like, I can miss this game.
It's background noise.
Yeah, I have it on, but like, I'm not even hurt because it's the Hawks. What are you going to do? This year, I was the crazy one at the start of the year projecting that we'd be in the bottom 10. I think everyone else had him in the bottom 5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm going to, I think we're bottom 10. Like, and now look at us.
Yeah.
We did all right.
Yeah. You're the Minnesota Wild this year.
Yeah.
You're not going to make the playoffs, but you're close.
I hate that. But
the one thing that, I could say is, that was my biggest fear, is being middle of the pack, not just missing the playoffs, because you're not going to get a draft pick. The Wild did that with veterans on their team. They didn't have young kids.
Right. They did that in their prime. That was
Yes.
their cup window.
That was their ceiling. And
That was the Parise Suter year.
yeah, and this was just a bunch of strung together young kids just going out there playing dumb, and it was fun.
And you get the Bash Brothers.
Yeah, like I know we still got a couple weeks left, but I had a great time watching the Hawks this year. Like I didn't expect to enjoy and love it and feel this bond with this team this much, and God, they bought me in.
Colleton got you.
Yeah,
Man,
Colleton. And I've even said some nice things about Stan Bowman. And
you have. I've heard
this is a big year.
That's what I was going to finish off with my managing expectations. I'm going to manage my expectations on Stan Bowman going forward. Like he's shut me up. He's proved me wrong. He's made some great trades, and I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust what. I hate to say this, but I'm going to trust what he has going.
He is a Bowman. Oh man, talking about Minnesota and those veterans makes me really wonder what would have happened if the Wings had been able to sign Suter and Parise, because it was very close. Well, where would we have been?
You're seeing what would have happened.
I mean, Suter and Parise were good. They just didn't have. They didn't have a team really.
They would have had Zetterberg, Datsuk, like all of those guys.
But I will say, what's their management and their development structure? Yeah. Because does Datsuk get ticked off and go back to the KHL or not come over as quickly? Who knows how they build around those guys? The years of the Wild that were in that same window as us, it wasn't Parise and Suter in my mind. It really was. I can't think of who their main defensemen were.
Wasn't Matt Dumba yet?
Yeah, that's exactly. Dumba's all I can think of. Dumba and Brodin, and they certainly weren't there.
Yes, the Wings were still we were still knocking on that playoff door. Like we were like a team that could still compete. What year was that? Shoot.
13.
I want to say
it was right after
14.
That was right after Lichtenstein retired. Then.
Yeah,
that makes sense then.
So we still had talent.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
It's fun.
History.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it for the show, unless anybody else has anything else to add. With that being said, that's it for our show tonight. We have one more.
We got a guest next week.
Oh yes, we do have a guest. Sorry,
we have a guest. We won't drop his name yet, but stay tuned. We got a guest next week, boys.
It's gonna be a big one.
It's Andrew Shaw. No, I'm just kidding. I just called him.
No, actually, yeah, that is a good important point to make. Next week's episode should be a special one. It won't be the typical episode that you see right here. It's going to be a special guest interview style show. I'm not sure exactly what we're sitting on for time length, but we'll talk about that after the show. So
it's going to be great.
It's going to be a good time. Yeah. Tune into the show and just enjoy it. We don't get special interviews very often. The last one we had was Max Boltman at the beginning of the season. This one is sort of like an end of season one. So it's, I think, a little bit different in terms of what we're going to be talking about.
It's not every day you get a drunk Mitch Trubisky to come join your podcast. You get what you get.
If our listeners enjoy listening to us talk hockey, they are going to love this one. He's a lot smarter than us.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody who comes on this show is admittedly smarter than everybody on this show.
Yeah.
In terms of hockey, okay, I don't think Max and I, he can compete with me talking about world history and U.S. history. I'll school that guy.
Say the meatballs are like down here, we're like right here, and then the guests are up here.
I'll take where we're at. That's a good win for us.
I consider this an absolute win.
That's the thing anyone said about me.
But yeah, that's going to be it for our show tonight, everybody. For anybody who tuned in or is listening to the show, we appreciate you guys tuning in and watching the show. At the end of the day, this is a podcast. It's by fans for fans. There's no corporate sponsorships as of this moment, so nothing that we can or cannot say. No takes we can or cannot have. At the end of the day, it's just a bunch of guys getting together, having fun, talking about these hockey clubs that we watch and enjoy following. And we hope that you guys enjoy following and watching us talk about them. If you want to get in touch with the podcast, there are ample ways to do it. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on SoundCloud, we're on Apple Podcasts. You can get in touch with us via email. Just plenty of avenues to get in contact with the podcast and follow the content however you enjoy your podcast content. On Facebook, obviously, it's just type in the Stick Blade Podcast, will show up. YouTube, the same thing, just type in the Stick Blade Podcast, will pull up there. On Twitter, the Twitter handle is @StickBladePod, all one word, no underscores or periods or anything like that. SoundCloud, the SoundCloud is soundcloud.com/stickbladepodcast. And then the email address is the stickbladepodcast@gmail.com. So whatever you want to do to get in contact with us, we love you having your guys' questions, your guys' comments, critiques for the show. At the end of the day, interacting with you guys is really one of the better parts of the show that we enjoy doing. So feel free to get in contact with us. We love interacting with you guys. But again, for your host, Jordan Linscott, and for my co-hosts, Tim Stompanato, David Barnhouse, and Nicola Page, this has been another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. You guys stay safe, take care of each other, take care of yourselves. In the meantime, let's just keep watching the end of this season, and let's just, look forward to what's going to happen potentially after the season wraps, and what can we look forward to with, the Hawks and the Wings moving into next season. You guys have a good evening. Take care of yourselves.